Hello. After the exceptional rainfall and the significant flooding of the last few days, you may well be pleased to hear that the weather is set to change. The next few days will be drier, yes, also colder, but I'm sure some lower temperatures will be a small price to pay for less in the way of rain.
Hundreds of homes are flooded in Nottinghamshire, leading to a major incident being declared. Flood warnings remain in place across large parts of England.
There have also been hundreds of evacuations here in Gloucestershire. We're in Tewkesbury, where once again the Abbey stands dry amongst a sea of floodwater.
The weather has caused a lot of disruption over recent days, but thankfully it is turning drier and brighter through today and for the weekend too. So some good news, but it will take several days for the floodwaters to recede.
More than 300 flood alerts and warnings are in place across much of southern, eastern and central England. You can see the map there that gives you a real indication of the scale of the problems. In Nottinghamshire, a major incident has been declared as the water levels in the River Trent remain extremely high.
Those pictures say it all, don't they? Because we've just still got widespread flooding.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning to you, Naga and Charlie. Morning to you at home too. Yeah, it's been a really wet start to 2024. Off the back of a very wet December, many of us have seen over a month's rainfall in just the first 3 or 4 days of January. So scenes like this, for many of us, this is Stratford-upon-Avon. Thankfully, though, the weather is starting to quieten down now, but it will take a little while for these floodwaters to start to recede.
So if we look ahead to the next few days, well, the weekend itself will be largely dry after a few showers on Saturday, becoming quite cold overnight Saturday night into Sunday. That mist and fog may be quite slow to clear in places on Sunday morning, but for the rest of the week, it will be colder but drier.
Now, hundreds of flood warnings remain in parts of England and Wales this morning. It comes just days after Storm Henk battered the UK with strong winds and rain.
Areas in southern and central England are the most affected. Nottinghamshire County Council has declared a major incident because of rising water levels on the River Trent. Hundreds of people have been evacuated from their flooded homes, including in Radcliffe, where the fire service was called in to help residents. And this is what the River Avon did to a back garden in Fordingbridge. The flood defence there swamped. There are so many people. I mean, this image says it all, doesn't it? And we have reporters around the country who are witnessing the floods, people who've been evacuated from their homes, really have no idea how long this wet weather is going to last. I'm sure you can tell us, at least in the short term.
Yes, well, good morning to you, Naga and Charlie. Morning to you at home too. The rain has just been relentless, hasn't it, over recent months. In fact, it was a wet autumn, a really wet start to winter. We've had 8 named storms so far, and the latest, Storm Henk, has left really a trail of destruction. So this is the picture in Shrewsbury, taken last night, and many areas seeing pretty similar conditions out there. So we've still got over 300 flood warnings in force at the moment, but there is some good news on the horizon, because over the next few days, thankfully, the weather's quietening down. We've got higher pressure building, so it's turning much drier, colder than it has been, but certainly a respite from the recent stormy weather.
Sarah, we've been looking at all those floods all over the place, Gloucestershire particularly, Nottinghamshire as well. It's looking grim for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Still over 300 flood warnings in force out there today, and it's a really widespread area of England and parts of Wales as well that have still got flood warnings. But some improvement in the weather over the next 24 hours or so. Things are drying up now, and we have got some dry weather on the cards, in fact, over the next week or so. But this is the picture in Bath this morning. Many areas still seeing those flood waters rising, but they should gradually start to recede.
On the floods, I'm not sure where your images is from there. We saw Gloucestershire, Tewkesbury particularly, and we saw Nottingham too. Real problems.
Yeah, that's right, Charlie. Really widespread area that's been affected by this flooding. In fact, we've got still over 300 flood warnings in force, and they are creeping up in number. This is the picture in Northamptonshire this morning, actually. Now the sun has risen, the River Nene has burst its banks there, and for actually many places it's hard to tell where the channel of the river really starts and ends. So yes, ongoing flooding, but some good news in the forecast. The weather, at least what's falling out of the sky, is going to be drying up over the next 24 hours or so. Good morning. The weather has certainly been causing a lot of disruption over the past few days. We've had relentless heavy rain. It's been a really wet start to winter, a wet start to 2024 as well. This is the picture in York this morning. And of course, York city centre, the River Ouse, no stranger to flooding problems, but the flood warnings are really widespread at the moment across much of Yorkshire, Midlands, southern England, parts of Wales as well. Yeah, Charlie, well, we've already got more than 300 flood warnings in force, and it's just been a really wet start to winter on top of a wet autumn as well. Some places have already had their January monthly rain total in just the first 3 or 4 days of the month. There's been more rain overnight, pressing across really much of England in particular. So flood warnings really extensive from Yorkshire through the Midlands down to East Anglia, as well as the picture in Norfolk, where it's been raining quite heavily over recent hours, right down to the south coast as well. So a very wide area impacted. Now, the good news is that drier theme to the weather will continue as we head through the weekend. So into Sunday too, it's looking largely dry, and that story continues into the new working week as well. Could well see some mist and some fog causing a few problems, particularly where we've got that really wet ground. There's likely to be some frost overnight, but you can see those temperatures really dipping down over the next few days. So it's turning colder, but thankfully it's turning drier as well. But of course, there's a bit of a lag between what's falling out of the skies and what's on the ground. So it will take a few more days, I think, for the floodwaters to fully recede.